All right, everybody, thank you so much for being here today. We're really excited to kick off with the first session of our program. This originally started towards the end of last year. And as we started to build out this program, we realized we think we have kind of a lot of cool things to unlock. And I kind of think this program, and we'll talk more in detail about it, as we have the match and we have the wood and we have a nice fire going. And what we're seeking to do over the next few months is really just pour fuel on that burning fire right now. So let's hop into the next slide. We'll kind of introduce ourselves and the program. That is me right there in that lovely pink Great Gatsby suit, smiling at something going on over there, and Daniel's beautiful locks that he doesn't have down right now. I am the VP of Product, Brock Masterson, and across the table from me is what I call the Chief Solutioneer here at Mode. I think technically his title is Customer Success Manager. But that's who will be giving these sessions over the next few months. Creating Your Acoustics Edge is the name of the program. Opportunities, confidence, and wins. So 4 months ago, when we started kind of ruminating about this idea, we both had some kind of key takeaways. What I ended up doing was doing 9 hours of interviews with some of our highest performing representatives in the field. And what I did is ask them the same questions in every interview. And I took some of their best practices and the things that they were saying and doing and some of their behaviors and cross-referenced it with other representatives. And it turns out there are 6 key things that popped up in those 9 hours worth of conversations. And that's your bucket there on the left, the best practices in field advantage. To the right is utilizing Daniel's thousands of hours, literally thousands of hours of solutioning and support and service for specifiers, right? For interior designers, for architects, for project managers, for installers, and most importantly, for sales reps. And Daniel, over the last 4 years, has made all of those people incredibly successful. And one of the best ways that he's done that is through our consultations, which is what we're going to cover today. So Daniel's really going to focus on that confidence and the technical leverage, and I'm going to focus on behaviors and best practices. So earlier opportunities, protecting specs, and higher value work is the name of the game here.
All right, so consults. How do we get the most out of these consults? Start off with a question. You guys just throw it in the chat, yes or no. How many of you have scheduled a consult within the last 30 days? Just kind of curious, get a baseline of how many people are utilizing these. What we're going to talk about here is kind of the how, the what, or the how, the who, the what, and the why, right? How they work, why we do them, who we do them for, all of that. So we'll start with why. Why are we going to schedule the consult? One, it creates value for our customers, establishes you as a trusted advisor, increases opportunity size, and specifications become sticky. Right now you go out to these libraries and you see acoustic product everywhere, right? There's so much felt, especially in people's products, that a lot of times we can get lost in they're another acoustic provider. I've got 100 of them. I'll just go into my room and pick one and we'll see what happens, right? By scheduling these consultations, you go from being another, spot on the shelf that has acoustics to being their go-to acoustic provider, right? They're going to come to you whenever they have a project that needs acoustics because you've helped them in the past, and you're not just another spot on a shelf in their library. We do understand that there's some hesitations to this. One of them, you don't really know what to expect from these. You can be uneasy about letting outside sources talk with your customers. So my previous background was sales. I sold technology, both hardware and software. And anytime we'd have a software presentation that I'm trying to sell the software, have to bring in our expert. And no matter how much I went through and said, hey, this is what they want to talk about, they want to focus on these features. I could prep them as much as I wanted, but then he'd come on and he'd give his canned presentation for that software and maybe spend 5-10 minutes about the features that were most important to that customer. And I'd be left kind of having to pick up the pieces and expound more later. And it was more work for me. It made me maybe a little bit less reliable in their eyes. So I get the uneasiness that some of you may have about letting someone else talk to your customer. We completely understand that. And I want to make sure that you understand I'm going to take care of your customer as if they're my own, right? I'm not gonna leave you in an awkward position. And I train my team to do the same. We're always thinking about the customer, and we're always gonna let them kind of guide the conversation. So we're always talking about what's most important to them. Just curious if there's any other concerns out there that any of you have for why maybe you don't want to schedule one of these calls.
Daniel, how much time do you need? Like if you're in an account and you want to hop on a consult, about how much time do you need to jump on one of these calls? What's a fair amount?
So right now, the way we have it set up is I think it's 60 minutes. So you can schedule when you go onto the site and you're scheduling a consult, within the next 60 minutes is usually blocked off, but outside of that, you can start to schedule. And it's tied directly to our calendars. So sometimes it is a little tough to get something right in the meeting. But it's really easy because of the scheduling, which we'll go over in a minute. Because of that, it's really easy for you to schedule these without ever finding out what our availability is. You can be right there in the room, pull it up and say, hey, what works for you? They have these times available. And then just get it set up.
Quick update to that real quick. The sessions are 30 minutes.
It's 30 minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, the sessions are 30 minutes, but we have an hour lead time of when you
15-minute lead time to
book a
schedule a
session.
call.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
So looking at the chat, it looks like about 25% of the people who are joining us today have scheduled a consult in the last 30 days. And one of the hesitancies that I picked up that I thought was kind of interesting is timing. They don't necessarily know exactly when to schedule the consults and kind of that process.
We'll go into that in just a minute.
Okay, great.
So expounding on the why, like to close more deals. That's the real why behind everything, right? So what you're seeing here is all of the opportunities that Mode had with National that were closed, whether it's won, lost, whatever, they're closed out. They're no longer an open opportunity just in 2025. So it's broken out by opportunities without a console and then opportunities with a console. And the high level here is the close one ratio increases by 71% with a console. The average opportunity size increases by 31%, and the average order, so the average order that gets placed is increased by 53%. So if you have a console, it's bigger and it's more likely to close. And this is the data from 2025, what we closed out. So it's real, it's right there. Hopefully this will help you guys understand a little bit more of the impact that these consults have on your opportunities.
I want to make a quick note that throughout this process, what we've learned by Daniel and I working with each other and working with different representatives in the field is that the most important wins that you're going to have aren't the speedy wins. It's not necessarily your first or your second closed deal. It's really your third and fourth. And these consults really help you do that. And as Daniel said, it really helps you become kind of the basis of design. You are the go-to acoustic problem solver. And we've seen experiences in the past where specifiers will reach out to a rep to talk about a space that they might not even specify a mode product in, but they realize that that the representative and Daniel and his team has real value. And so we are totally fine to spend the time to win a job that's, you know, your job 3, your job 4, or a job kind of that's a year later. It looks like in the chat, you know, another hesitancy for us to consider is that projects be too small and too simple? So I think that's something that we need to cover.
Yeah, we'll get into that in just a little bit when we talk about the framework and kind of all that. Let's dive real quick into what the consoles are, though. You know, bottom line is there's 4 things that it does. It increases the confidence in the designer to specify a product for the first time, because we know that that's always something that is difficult for them to do. It's specify a product that they've never used before. It reduces the risk of that being value engineered out, and the risk that the architect is going to be taking, right? They're going to feel less risk after having these conversations. It protects the specs. So when we have a consultation and we help them write the spec, that makes it more solid. The more we talk about this project, the more we help them solve when it comes to installation, you know, what the substrate behind needs to be, how to actually specify it. They get more invested in this product. And so when it comes time down the road and they're like, hey, we need to cut some money, let's cut acoustics, because that seems to be the only thing that ever gets cut. The designers and the architects are like, no, you can't do that. Like, we're going to protect that. Let's cut something else. We've seen that happen. And then the last one, it increases your credibility as the acoustic person to go to. They're not walking into that room, grabbing something off the shelf and be like, I guess it's this. No, they have acoustics. They forget about the room and they call you directly. So that's kind of what they do, right? There's 4 phases of a high impact consultation. Kind of before, we want to make sure that we set an objective. If you have drawings or renders or anything like that along those lines, you send them to us before the call. It always helps us kind of get a baseline of what we're going to be talking about. And then that we identify the key decision makers and make sure they're invited to the call. So once we move into opening up the call, what we'd like from you is to frame the purpose really succinctly, introduce us, and then we're going to take over and we're going to invite them to really talk about the project and go into detail. We start everyone with essentially the same thing. Tell us what you got going on. Tell us about your project. Let us know how we can help. And then they start talking. And the more they talk about the project, the more you can feel their passion, understand what matters to them and what doesn't. And during the call, we're going to help guide them where we want them to go. Guide them towards the products that are going to make the most sense. We're going to gather all the project details. We're going to educate, and as we narrow the scope, we're going to educate them with that. And then our after action, we always want to recap and assign action items, make sure that we're all in alignment, and then a follow-up email with those action items and timelines is set, right? So that's kind of the framework of how we do these calls. So here's the framework within the call. So we're going to talk about these 3 things. First, we're going to talk about their space, the design intent, the use of the space, how big, how many people are going to use it, all the different things that come into play with their space. We're going to go into their needs. You know, do they need an acoustic report? Do they need us to help solve how much they need for that, whether they need a report or not? The hardware, the documentation that they're going to need, all the other things that they're going to need, we make sure that we uncover all of that. Once we've kind of talked about their space and start to uncover their needs, we're going to establish their design intent, their budget and timeline, and then we're going to start to share items, photos, cut sheets, different resources that we have, and start to educate not only on our products, but also our process and how things work. The other thing that this really helps us do is in this portion is set our expectations. We all know wood has a long lead time, right? So especially if we get in early and we're talking about a project, we can set those expectations well in advance and be like, hey, there's a long lead time. This needs to make sure that it's communicated to the contract, the general contractors and the subcontractors, that there's going to be a long lead time, and we need to set those expectations right now. It's so much easier than at the back end saying, hey, we've got to have this, right? What are we going to do? So any questions about, the 4 phases of a console, or the framework of how we go about executing the console?
I think that's pretty clear. It's well done. Yeah.
Okay.
So, looking at one of your previous slides and how many consultations we've done and the business we've closed, what percentage of people out in the field are scheduling consults? And then how many are they scheduling, if that makes sense?
Yeah. So what we see right now is the majority of the consults are scheduled by a handful of the reps. Once a rep gets 1 or 2 under their belt, it's a snowball effect for them, and they really start doing more and more and more. They see the value, their customers see the value, and a lot of the reps out there have told us that designers and architects have called them up and said, hey, I have a different project. Can we get on a call with Mode again? They're asking for these, and that helps get them more and more and more, right? And so right now, I would say probably 10 to 15% of the reps are truly utilizing these in the most effective way. And then there's some more and more people starting to do them a little bit more, but we really want to have everybody be using these as much as possible. So scheduling, how do you schedule these? Very, very simple. Up in the top right-hand corner of the website is a little button that says schedule live consultation. Takes you to the Calendly invitation that's branded. And you can then set, pick your day. It's going to ask you where your location is. Enter in the emails that you want to be invited, of the people that you want invited, and then a little brief description of what we're going to be talking about, right? So it's a super simple thing. You can do it right there with them. And then this also kind of comes into what type of projects need it, what type of projects don't. There really isn't necessarily a project that we would say, yeah, we don't need to schedule a consult for that. But what I would say is, you're out there and you get a question that you can't answer. Instead of saying like, hey, let me find out for you, let me get in touch with somebody. You can't answer that question. Hey, you know what? Let me get a call put together. Then they can answer all of your questions, help make sure that we understand and are on the same page about what's being accomplished, and use that time to schedule the consult, instead of being like, yeah, you know what? Let me find the answer and get back to you. Hey, that's a great question. I want to involve my team. We can schedule a quick consult, 15, 30 minutes. They'll answer all the questions that you have. They'll provide a lot more insight than I'm able to give. And it's a really easy way to schedule your first one with a customer, right? From there, once they get on these, they're going to see the value, and they're going to be asking you for them. But not every opportunity that we get, especially after we establish ourselves as the go-to expert, we've done projects and they've specified us, and they've got a new project. They're going to use very similar things. We don't necessarily have to get on a consult for that, right? They know how to spec it. We've gone through all this with them. We can kind of move forward maybe without a consult on situations like that. But if there's questions that they're being asked, consults are always the easiest, most effective way to get those questions answered.
So in the chat, I ran a quick poll. I was just curious to see kind of what people think the best use of a consultation is.
Mm-hmm.
And just want to read some of the answers that I received, and would love to talk about it a little bit. And then Keith, if you want to speak to 1 or 2 of these, that'd be great. I heard I have technical questions. The job sounds very complex. I'm stuck, or my project is taking too long. Keith, do you want to talk about one of those?
Well, I think all of them. To me, this is the best way to clarify a path for your customer. Number one. Number two, I don't think it has to necessarily be your project to jump on a consult. So I think it would be a valuable tool to share, and we would do this on our side when these consults are taking place. So as a rep, you're going to continue to learn just by participating. So yeah, it sounds like it's statistically time well spent. But I don't think you necessarily have to wait for your own consult.
Is there a best use of a consult, or are all those fine reasons to schedule a consult?
They're all fine.
So-
They're all fine reasons.
Yeah.
I think for the reasons that Dan talked about even up front is creating trust with your client is probably number one. That's the basis of your relationship. And then again, a speedy path to a specification, holding on to your specs. I mean, I think everything really kind of reads to those comments, Brock, about why you do want to have a consult. And I don't think necessarily you want to wait for your own. If you have time, jump on somebody else's consult and listen in. So we'll coordinate that on our side.
Sure.
So one of the most effective, some of the most effective consults that we do aren't necessarily about acoustics specifically, right? And one of the things that these help establish is using acoustics to create their design, right? So if we can solve design challenges that they have with acoustics, it's even more beneficial to them, and that spec is not going to get VE'd out. If it gets to the end of the project and they're trying to cut budget and they say, hey, let's cut the acoustics out of a room, that every design element is acoustics, they can't cut that out because now they don't have any design in the room, right? So when we use wood as a design, when we use the baffles as a design, or even the felt, like when we're helping them solve design challenges with acoustics, one, it helps them. They don't have to think about acoustics now because they designed it with the acoustics. So they know they're going to get an acoustically sound room. And then we help them solve a design challenge that they had with the acoustics. Our product can't be taken out of there because it's the design, right? And so when I would say what's the most effective one, like any consult that's done is effective, right? But what we see the most impact for the customers is when you also help them solve design challenges. And sometimes that's with, custom applications to our products. And sometimes it's just helping them understand the best way to design their space to maximize value, right? A lot of times designers want to have unique dimensions and sizes to help them, create this great element, but they don't realize the impact that has on cost. And so helping them solve that sort of a challenge too, in a way that keeps their intent, gives them the design they're looking for, but maximizes the value that they're going to get out of each panel. Like that's a benefit to them, and they really resonate with you helping them work within their design intent and have their idea and vision come to life.
And that really blends with some of the stuff that I've learned, is that there's an industry trend that design and build architecture firms are starting to, they're calling it offloading upstream work. And they're wanting other collaborators to take more control over some of the elements like lighting and design and engineering and structural and all that stuff. And it wouldn't surprise me if a manufacturer like us is going to have an acoustician or an engineer or an installer moving forward. And I think that's where we provide real value, is to be integrated into those conversations early before the space is built, right? In the previous 30, 40 years, it felt like acoustics was, what pattern is the couch going to be, or what art are we going to put on the walls? And one interesting thing about integrating the solutions team, your team, earlier into that conversation is it really speaks to and helps assist with that kind of early phases of the development of those envelopes.
A good way to put it is we help them design with acoustics instead of adding acoustics to their design, right? When you design with acoustics, you're going to get a much better result, one, and two, you can't get rid of the acoustics because that's the design element to it.
And just to reiterate real quick, because I'm seeing it pop up, is that, consultations are more than just technical rescue. And it was a headline of one of our slides, is it kills uncertainty. It just creates certainty for both the sales representative and the architects and interior designers and folks moving it forward.
Yep.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, Brock. We did a lot of research on our recent brand refresh, and we found that customers make decisions based on either love or fear, and they're twice as likely to make decisions based on fear. So not using somebody is a very real side of that statistic. Is they're twice as likely not to use you because they're scared to use you. So I love that you're saying you're removing the fear, right? You're adding trust. So good stuff.
Okay. Activate call to action. This is what we would love from all of you. Within 30 days, either schedule a consult of your own or join one that one of your fellow coworkers has scheduled, right? We want in the next 30 days, all of you to at least be able to see a consultation, right? So work within your team, your weekly or bi-weekly team meetings that you guys have, talk about who has consults coming up, and you can just join as a fly on the wall. Keep your camera off, muted, just listen in and see how we conduct ourselves, how we conduct these consultations. You're going to learn from it. You're going to get more comfortable letting us, do these for you. And then within 60 days, we would love for you to identify a designer or architect in your territory that you have not ever had a meeting with, but use the consultation as your entry point into that firm for an opportunity. You might have to do some digging to find out, projects they're working on. And it could be a little like, hey, have you thought about acoustics in this? And, with the response like, hey, I would love for my acoustic team to help you solve that issue. We can do a 30-minute call. They can answer all your questions about acoustics, help make sure that your space is going to be acoustically sound, right? So use the consultations for acoustics as your entry point into that firm, and then continually provide feedback on that. Let us know how that goes, but also we want you to provide feedback on these consults. So let us know what's working well. Almost more importantly, let us know what you don't like, what isn't working well. Negative feedback. Nobody, I think, in your life is ever going to tell you this except for me right now. I desperately want any negative feedback you have from us or for us. We can't change and get better if we don't have that negative feedback. We don't know what issues we may either be causing or we're not solving. Like, we can't get better at that. So please provide as much feedback as you guys can for us. And then, as always, share your positive experiences. We love to hear them, but also share them with your fellow team members, right? Let them know the positive experiences that you guys have had with that. It'll all help us win more together. So, any other questions out there that I can answer about consultations?
I'll share one positive thing that I'm reading right now. Let me get this right. One rep who is a frequent consultations user always ends with this. I think this is interesting. She ends the conversation with, "Does this give you what you need to confidently move forward with mode?" And that unlocks a really great conversation. I think that's a really nice way to end consultations.
Yeah, and it's a way for that rep to basically ask for a sale, right? Like, I want you to use this. Can you move forward with us? Yes or no? Like, that's kind of open for interpretation, but it's a yes or no question at the end of the day. Yes, I have enough. I have no issue moving forward with you. All right, then specify this. If they say I have no issue and then they don't specify, you like, hey, what happened? Like, I thought we provided everything that you needed. And so it's a way to truly just, all right, we laid out everything here for you. Are we good? You're gonna specify us? And it's a great subtle way to ask for that. Any other questions?
I think that's it. I appreciate the work you guys put into this session. I know you've got 9 more, I think,
11 more.
11.
11 more. So yeah, I look forward to getting these on the calendar and getting more info from you, but terrific job.
Wonderful. Yeah. And we'll follow up this presentation with kind of some post-presentation thoughts and activities and challenges and just more engagement. So be on the lookout for that. Appreciate everyone joining us today. I'll speak for Daniel and say that we know your time is extremely valuable, and we're hoping that we can provide more value to you over the next few months. And thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.